Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the ChampSoft Unplugged series, a platform where we connect, communicate, and grow together through meaningful conversations. Today, we are honored to have someone whose leadership, dedication, and communication play a vital role in keeping operations aligned and teams connected across regions. Please join me in welcoming our first featured guest, Erin Haan, Operations Manager at ChampSoft. We'll be talking about professional journey, leadership experiences, communication, teamwork, and the importance of building strong workplace. Let's dive into the conversation.
All right, Erin. To start with, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how your professional journey got started?
Sure. So my name is Erin Haan, and I am the operations manager here at ChampSoft. And my career journey is probably a lot like many other people's. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and that gave way to an English major for an undergrad and then a master's in adult education, thinking I would go on to teach at a college level. That did not happen. Um, I was looking for my big girl job and happened to get into project management for a technology company. I was there for a long time up until the pandemic. And once the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic kind of got over, I realized that my job was great, but it required me to be on the road a lot. And after doing that for 11 years, it wasn't something that I really saw doing anymore. So I made the shift to project manage at an addiction recovery company, which was totally game changing for me. Completely different mission, completely different set of people. It was a really great experience. But then that department got eliminated. So I was out of a job at the end of 2023, and I happened to meet Jiwa along the way on that journey, and he and I stayed connected. And by February or March of 2024, this position had been created because ChampSoft was growing pretty steadily. And so, after a lot of conversation and back and forth and a very fast trip to Nashville, I started my job here as operations manager.
Sounds interesting. So, looking back at your career, your experience, so what actually motivated you to become a leader, the leader that you
Uh,
are today?
oh, that is a good question. And it's one that I ask myself often, actually. But I feel like from a very young age, it was just natural for me to want to not necessarily take control, but guide people. That's why I wanted to be a teacher. And so after leading projects and coming into more of a leadership role on the PM team itself, this seemed like the next natural progression with a whole new set of challenges that I had not faced previously. But yeah, I've always been a leader, whether it was on sports teams or in theater or study groups in college. It just came very natural to me to want to help guide and support. So yeah, it seems like a natural fit.
Indeed, we all can feel that you were meant for this role. So you said that like you knew Jiva.
Hmm.
So what I mean, like, what was the point in that entire meeting, or with the entire conversation that you had with him, made you said yes to join Chamsoft?
Well, the most obvious need, and I think the part that people kind of gloss over was the need for a job. I was unemployed with a daughter, and my fiance and I were trying to figure things out. So, the first and foremost need was a job. But beyond that, after meeting Jiwa and spending I'm going to say several hours over the course of weeks talking to him about ChampSoft's vision, mission, and values, and the history of the company, where he came from in Sri Lanka and how he built this business and has been able to sustain it in a world that is continually changing, and technology is great when it works, but people are upset when it doesn't, or things don't go right all the time. So it was an industry that I was comfortable in, but Geo specifically, I could sense the sincerity there in him, and I could sense the kinship that we were starting, with honesty and openness up front. He was very honest about the good and the bad that ChampSoft had and what the company had gone through over 15 years, and that transitional time that we were in when I came on board was not something he shied away from. So I loved his honesty and the people approach that he takes in making decisions and, perpetuating the business forward while still caring very, very much and very deeply for every person that works here.
Which is true,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. To this day.
Yeah. So, like this role of operations manager, I know, like for you, it might would have been the first experience working with two other such countries where you
Hmm.
have, the project team, development team situated. So, how much challenging it was for you, to coordinate with people initially when you were, trying to figure out how your this, like role would help people.
Yeah. I think anybody coming into a role like this where the majority of the resources are 10 and a half to 11 and a half hours difference was the biggest challenge for me. And wanting to be mindful and very respectful of everyone's evening time, and understanding that, trying to pack everything into mornings was maybe not as realistic, but that's kind of how it tended to be. So it was a lot to learn. I will say that different labor laws, the currency, just the cultural differences. And I think being a woman in the technology world in general, and then coming into a position of leadership, had its own set of challenges there as well. But the offshore folks, you and everyone else on the leadership team and the project teams made me feel right at home from the very beginning. So it was not as much of an adjustment personality wise as it was trying to figure out the timing of things and the time zone difference more than more than anything else.
Yes, right. That could have been, like a challenging point for you.
Hmm.
But throughout your experience working with us on different regions, so can you like recall one of a good memory, I would say, where you feel more motivated and you thought, like this was the right decision I made saying yes when joining ChampSoft?
Oh, easy. I mean, throughout the entire 2 years and change of my career here, I feel like at least once a month there's a point where, you kind of go through your peaks and valleys, especially as a leader. But the peak for me in joining was meeting the different people on the leadership team, Toshika, and back then it was Harsha, and now Chaminda. We've, having taking the business part of it off the table and having those very real human conversations to like understand the different culture and relating on a personal level. Like, I didn't realize that I could have so much in common with somebody literally a world away. You all are starting your daytime when I'm winding down from the on the day before. So those human connections to me were incredibly important. And the technology that we've got with Teams and things like that made it seem not so far, like we weren't so far apart. But if I had to pick a specific event, I would say staying up late in my nighttime to watch our new building go through the blessing process and open up and see everybody dressed in their finest, and seeing pictures from events that I don't get to participate in, but to see everyone else be able to come together for different events that HR puts on and things like that. Those are the things that really, like, it helps bring things back home for me for sure.
Well, That is actually very true, Erin.
Mm-hmm.
And we still remember like when the opening ceremony was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Jiva used to see, and he's like, you know what? Erin is watching. We have
Mm-hmm.
friends. We have our colleagues watching from US, and we were like,
Yeah.
whoa, everybody's
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
So that was one of, like a point where you felt that, you made the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
In your tenure, do you feel like there was, like any sort of situation where you feel that, oh God, this is very challenging for me. How am I gonna cope up? How am
Mm-hmm.
I gonna fulfill the expectation which is from me and my role?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think anybody who would tell you differently would be lying to you, or telling you what you wanted to hear. And part of where we're at in the world right now, especially with social
Mm-hmm.
media and things like that, is that we lift the veil on secrecy. We lift the veil on those private moments. I don't personally, I don't post that stuff on social media, but
Mm-hmm.
in the challenging moments, I think I always tried to keep a calm and positive face in front of my colleagues and peers. But if the meeting got over or when the cameras got turned off, there was emotion behind that too. I have cried to my husband about decisions that I've had to make. I've cheered to my husband and my family, and I've got a wonderful network around me here where I live, even though you can't see in my attic,
Mm-hmm.
um, who are engaged in my career and in my life. And I think as a human and as a leader, we need to surround ourselves with people who lift us up. And, I can call one of my best friends who is not in technology at all. She's an ER nurse, but she and I can talk on a level that she gets me through those moments that have been incredibly
Mm-hmm.
challenging for me. And, you just have that space to scream and cry and stamp your feet and vent and then get it together, find the path forward, and then just keep chugging along. So, having that network offline, especially in a leadership position where you can't always step down and go vent to, someone on the project team was really important for me.
So, will you say that it is more of like balancing your emotion when you have too much going around and then you want someone to hear you out?
Big time. Big time, because part of the challenge of being a leader is sitting down and thinking through a very complex problem, like how to grow the company from, this amount of net profit to this amount of net profit, and how are we going to do it with the pieces we have, the people we have, the technology we have. And I would get these visions, I would have these ideas, but then I have to articulate them out in a way that is digestible for everyone else around me. So it really did also teach me the value of very detailed communication and patience when not everyone around me saw or understood what I was trying to do, and then how to positively reinforce that to affect real change. It's a lot.
Well,
It's a lot.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot. Okay, so since Erin, like you, me, and like you working with other departments, so like how do you feel like with the operational responsibilities you did had balance when you were helping the other teams as well?
Mhm. Yep. I do. I think that I'm the way I approach things is not as much about the hierarchy, which I think drives a lot of leaders insane because in my past experience, it was like having the leadership up here on this pedestal and they just looked down and rained down decisions on you. And you just had to figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to adapt with it as an employee, or they'd let you go and be like, yeah, we'll find somebody else who can take your place. But for me, I really wanted to dig down and get on that level and help because I'd been there. I'd been on the other side of that for most of my career where I just had to adapt, like most of us do, to the decisions that someone else made without understanding the whole impact. So when we were going to roll something new or a decision was put in place, We tried to have a plan that broke it down and really sat down and explained the why to every single person. And sometimes those changes took a bit longer to implement, but everybody understood how they played into those things going forward. And for me, I'd rather lead by walking side by side than being above. I don't necessarily believe in a hierarchy because we're not a huge organization. So if I'm not willing to dig down and do the work and try to help at that day-to-day level, which sometimes was to my detriment, um, how could I expect everyone else to just follow marching orders? So it was that for me was definitely a challenge was to dictate and not get into the weeds on all the things too.
To I like to add up to your point. I think,
Yeah.
like we are one of the rarest company who
Mm-hmm.
just do not, like put all our decisions in front of employee. We
Mm-hmm.
we first check it on ourselves. We do discuss pros and cons, and with all due respect of the entire team, that is when we move ahead and implement something for our
Yep.
team,
Yeah, and I'm
which is
sure
good
you've
for
been on
them.
the other side of that too, where we've had all these conversations and everybody thinks, they have a say in the decision. So they come back to
Yeah.
you in HR and they want to have this, sort of debate with you
Yeah.
about the decision when all we were trying to do is say, no, 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 let me explain it to you. So that's, I'm sure from an HR perspective, you can speak to that too. And what are the consequences and the amount of time it takes for you on your end to see these things through.
Right. Like I believe like every department comes with a sort of learning experience.
Hmm.
So talking about learning experiences, Erin, like was there a specific moment at ChampSoft that you thought, this is the point for me to grow personally or professionally? It could be, like an exposure towards a new tech stack or maybe an exposure towards like working with people who are not in front of you, living miles away.
Yes, all of the above. All of the above. I will be the first to say I am not the most technical person. I'm not a developer. I will probably
Mm,
never develop, even with all the AI fun that is available now at a base level. I am a people person. I like the relationship building part of it, and I like building those bonds across worlds and miles with customers and with people internally. And for me, I think one of the biggest things I tried to bring out of our teams was that confident ability to articulate to our customers what's going on and showcasing the work that we've done. One of the biggest challenges was understanding the American culture that is very like confident and outspoken, and we have to be able to articulate and say yes and no to these things, and then coming into teams who were brilliant, and I do mean brilliant, developing things that I can't even imagine, but they would be a little bit more silent on a call. And it just to me was like, what do I have to do to get you to speak and showcase and be proud of the work that you've done? And that's not a slight at anybody because I've seen several people in our organization grow with confidence and grow with that pride. And I'm hoping that's, one legacy many, many moons down the road that I can leave behind was that like it's okay to be very confident and comfortable in your own work.
what I feel, like with your experiences, um, employees must or like maybe feeling that, what if my question is not up to that level that,
Mm-hmm.
management thinks that, hey, am I that much, capable enough to ask this question? Um,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think there? Like what could be that one point that, employees must be thinking that, what if I just switch on my mic or switch on my camera, or if
Yeah.
anybody see me, judge me?
Yeah. Asking questions means you're very vulnerable. And I've been in the trainer role for a long time. That's what I did when I was in my
Mm-hmm.
career for 11 years. I trained people on how to use software. And people who were so confident in their everyday life became so uncomfortable sitting in the driver's seat for training. And it got to be my mantra to say the only dumb question is the question that is not asked, no matter what. We're trying to, again, being worlds away and only having connection virtually via Teams or Zoom, we're trying to pack in all of these questions, knowledge transfer sessions, workflow sessions, brainstorming sessions, collaboration, call it what you want, into an hour's worth of dialogue where the customer has an idea, we have an idea. Now we've got to mash that all up. And the urge to people please and get in and just kind of do the work in your bubble can sometimes seem like it overtakes the want for the question. They don't want to, we don't want to ask the questions. We don't want to feel like we're
Mm-hmm.
dumb. And I
Yeah.
think that's a huge misconception. I have a daughter and she asks questions from sun up to sundown. And it's about everything. Why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? If we approached our jobs a little bit more like a child trying to understand the world, I think we would go a lot farther in our career. And sometimes I've told people you may have to ask the question 6 different ways to get the real answer that you need. But I promise you, it makes you feel validated. It makes the customer feel like you're engaged. And there's value added to that conversation, especially in a team setting. So the ability to speak up and be a bit vulnerable, and you don't have to be on camera for that. That's, it's no different than picking up the telephone and calling someone and asking a question. It's just doing that to get the answer that you need to be successful in your life. And if you're going to be a little bit selfish about it, how do I do my job if I don't ask you the questions? So that part has been an exercise in patience, but that also comes with being a bit seasoned in your career. Um, and knowing from my mistakes, I was the person that didn't want to ask the question. I assumed I knew everything, and I was humbled very, very quickly over and over and over again until I figured out, listen, the only dumb question is one that's not asked.
Which is true.
Yeah.
I think we are talking here more about communication,
Hmm.
and then so Erin, when it comes to communication, since you are in US, I'm in
Yeah.
India,
Yeah.
and we do have a beautiful team sitting in Sri Lanka. So
Yes.
so there is, like a cultural difference, I would say. So have you ever noticed that difference throughout your tenure with us?
Oh
And
yeah.
if yes, then how you have, bridged that gap between?
You know, I don't even know if it's a cultural difference, but because I would have to go in and create these relationships from nothing when I would go on site to train people or meet them for the first time and do a workflow. The trick is, and this is kind of a trade secret, but the trick to being a good leader or a good team member is to start by getting to know the other side, the other person, and make that initial conversation all about the other person, like taking control. And, if you and I, Shazia, were on a call, I'd make it all about you. What did you do today? What did you eat? What are you going to do tonight? What are you going to do this weekend? Number one, you don't have to give anything of yourself, which is a beautiful thing. If you're that vulnerable about sharing things, it makes it all about that other person. But it also engages you, Shazia, to anticipate my next question or think through some of these things. And then when we communicate again, when we meet again, I can start jumping in like, oh, how is your dog? How is your dad? How was that thing you did last weekend? And from there, it just gives us a rolling starting point of like the chit chat. Chit chat
Yeah.
is so, so, so important. And that's how when I meet customers for the first time and I engage with them, it's never about work for the first 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the relationship. Rarely is it ever about work, but that's time invested into the person on the other end of the phone. And then vice
Mm-hmm.
versa, they may ask me questions. we may get to know each other on that level, but it really does open that door to building the relationship. So when something doesn't go great, or when we have those low moments or we disagree, we can
Mm-hmm.
always come back to center and make that common ground our jumping off point again.
Right. So, Erin, when you said that, since you were also talking to clients, so
Mm-hmm.
I believe that, you are that one person who is communicating with all of the departments, and then our CEO, our financial advisors,
Yep.
legal advisors, and then
Mm-hmm.
client. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that conversation and that communication, how do you keep it like more effective and on point when it comes to deliver an information or any update or feedback?
Ooh. Well, that is a good question. Typically, it's all about preparation for me. Even if there's no formal agenda, I typically have at least a couple of talking points I know going into the call that need to be addressed, whether they're questions from our
Mm-hmm.
team to the customer, or, sometimes they're not pleasant conversations about, financial status or moving the timeline back or, excuse me, shifting resources on or off of a team. But I always, always, always go into those conversations. And before I talk about anything work related, it's how are you today? Like, what is going on in your world today or this week? So I can gauge from their perspective, are they having a good day? Is it a bit rough? Do they have a sick kid? My daughter was teething for a hot minute, so we had a lot of sleepless nights. So if I can listen, and I always listen for tone and inflection, because it's so much about what's not said in either the silences or the tone of voice, that I can kind of tailor my delivery, because it's not about the agenda, it's about how the message is delivered. And sometimes you just have to rip the band-aid off. You being in HR, you've had unpleasant conversations, but you pad those conversations with things, with love and empathy, which is how I try to approach a lot of things in my life. Is if we're just a little bit more kind, if I can go into this, even though I might be having the worst day, if I can
Mm-hmm.
go into this with a little bit of love and kindness, I think it helps bridge that, delivery. But as far as what we talk about, I have a notepad next to me always, and I always have notes jotted down in what may be chicken scratch. I'm old school. I have a pen and paper, that help me stay organized and on point. And I go back and look at meeting notes from teams previously, or I try to hop into team calls, which add a little bit of burden to my day, but not really. I'd rather know what's going on in a project than go into it blindly and go, hey, how's it going? All good, right? So I try to educate myself as best I can in going into all conversations. So yeah, just organization and notes, really.
So this is like really great to hear that, even our operations manager before going to any interview, she do her all like she do all her due diligence
Oh
and
yeah.
that too before meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So so Erin, like when a company like ChampSoft, which is, in the growing phase right now,
Mm-hmm.
so how like what role does an effective and efficient communication plays a vital role?
Yeah. I think if you ask anybody in a leadership position, regardless of the size of the company, because I've talked
Mm-hmm.
to several people in my role, in a similar role, in a team lead role, what is the one thing that every organization can improve on? And literally every year, the same answer I get is communication. When do we use Teams chats or instant messaging versus an email? An email, I hate as a primary source of communication, because there's so much gray area in an email. I can read it. I might be having a bad day. Like I mentioned, I might not have had enough coffee
Mm-hmm.
today. And I get an email from you, Shazia, in HR, and you mean nothing by it. It's a very simple statement, but because of the
Mm-hmm.
mood and the mind frame I'm in, I read it completely differently. And now I've started this rat's nest in my head of, well, Shazi is mad. This is not going to go well. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? When a simple conversation on the phone for 30 seconds would alleviate so much. And the other rub with email is that it is an extreme time waster. I can pick up the phone and call you and have a conversation in 30 seconds or say, hey, Shazia, send you a message. Can you call me when you have a sec? I just have a question for you. Companies spend far too much time swapping emails. You're going to email me at 8:01 a.m. I won't see it until 9:01 or 10 o'clock because I'm in meetings
Right.
for 2 hours, So communication also directly falls into appropriate time management and the ability to balance all of those things while dealing with customer requests because people can call me, they text me, they email me, they Teams chat me. You know, the more communication means and methods that we have, the worse our communication tends to get. So, as an employee, whatever your working hours are from 8 to 5, set one communication standard. For me, it's Teams chat typically, or if I have a customer call my cell phone, I am immediately on that call because if they're taking the time to call me and not send me an email, I know it's probably
Mm-hmm.
a priority. So effectively, calls always come first for me, then Teams chats or text messages, and then email is always third because of our structure in our day, I don't want to spend 4 hours replying to emails when a 30-second conversation on the phone would suffice. So I think if organizations got a bit more tidy about what their communication standards are, our whole world would be a lot more efficient.
Right. So,
Uh-huh.
so Erin, this is like out of context,
Mm.
but when you see, like when you start your day, you just go through your inbox. What do you feel when there is 150 or 200 an email just in a daytime? Like when you slept, you saw that, oh, right, my inbox is
Mm-hmm.
0. I am having a good sleep. And the moment you wake up, it is 200 emails. What is your first expression or thought at that time?
I shy. No. In all seriousness, typically with the way my days are structured, mornings are meeting time. That's that face-to-face interaction with project teams, with other leadership members, with finance, et cetera, to address specific questions or strategically plan, how are we going to handle the winding down of this project? Where are we going to move people? So I
Mm-hmm.
typically don't look at my inbox first thing in the morning, which will send some people into a tiz. But I kind of glance at, and I will be the first to admit that I start my day on my phone and just kind of scroll through my
Mm-hmm.
emails and see if there's anything that, stands out. But my priority is always people first. If it's that important, call me. If I haven't responded in a timely manner for you, send me an instant message, a Teams chat, or, if we're in the States, a text message. I will find it. I'll sort through my email and then, we'll go about our day. But, and this is where I think a lot of leaders tend to inflate their ego slightly. Just because I'm copied on it doesn't mean I'm relevant to it. So,
Right.
being able to distinguish, is this really something I have a valid opinion to share? Or I read it and I will chat someone on Teams and say, hey, Shazia, I read your email. Can we talk for just a few minutes? Because I always rather have a conversation than waste time swapping emails back and forth. Again, because you're swapping ideas, you're swapping dialogue that could be
Right.
handled in this space and on this platform where email to me is just a follow-up tool. So to see 150 emails, okay, it also doesn't take me very long to sort through them in my afternoon time because I try to have the conversations that are relevant in the morning. And by the afternoon time, a lot of them get filed because I don't need to reply.
Right.
Hmm.
But unfortunately for us, our day starts with our
Yep.
inbox emails.
Hmm.
So Erin, ChampSoft, like has other entities working alongside with ChampSoft like DDI, Champ
Mm-hmm.
360. So talking about all the three entities, um, like, do you think that, working with three entities, it has brought meaningful change in your life? It could be either professional or personal, but is it?
I think so. I think understanding the lanes because each entity has a specialty, right? And when to leverage those folks. Again, it goes down to how organized and efficient can we be. If I know DDI is not directly involved in this particular project, cool. Then I don't have to bother them with this particular thing today. But having the ability to work across three different organizations dependent on need is, for me, it's been incredibly unique because it's either been
Mm-hmm.
all under one umbrella, like it was at the recovery company I worked for,
Mm-hmm.
or it was farmed out. And when you start to farm something out, now you're paying outside sources and now you're stuck on their timelines. And now, there's so much dependent and there's so many more additional risks that come when you farm out marketing or project management or technology support, that having all of those things in house, number one, eliminates a lot of that risk. And number two, the talent pool for each organization is very different. And that is so fun for me to get to talk to people about, like, why did you want to become a machine learning engineer? Because to me, it's Greek. I would never. That's just me personally. But then on the flip side of that, they're like, why do you like talking to people at all ever? So it's been a fun way to get to know different types of people. And then from a personal perspective is like, how do I reach them and how do I get their buy-in when they don't care about the relationship, or they're not that they don't care, they're not good at the people part and I'm not good at the tech part. So how do I build the relationship where I can call someone and say, "Hey, I have a question for you," and they're like, "Yes, let me jump in and help." So it's been a challenge, but it's been one that I enjoy because that's a puzzle I like. People puzzles are fun for me.
I think you are more of like taking challenges,
Yeah.
solving them, and putting the boxes to the right places.
I try.
So Erin, taking up
Hmm.
all these challenges every day, and I would say throughout the day. So, what is that one or two thing that motivates you every day,
Mm.
that you should give your 100% every time, irrespective of the task is small or big?
Yep. This is a little bit off topic slightly, but I'm gonna say my daughter. Um, before my daughter, it was the proverbial climbing of the corporate ladder and wanting to, be at that next level and have those, the next thing and the title and all that. But when my daughter was born, my world changed forever. And now when I get up in the morning, she's who I see in the morning. My husband may or may not be working from home that day, but she's everything that I want to leave behind. And so we're in that phase right now where she likes to say, I can't do it, or it's too hard, or, I don't ever want to squash that, but I want to empower her to say, you know what? It's okay. It's okay that it's hard. Life is supposed to be hard. If it's the hard makes it the great. And I don't want her to grow up thinking that her mother couldn't do or chose not to do it because it was too hard. So, she doesn't understand it now and she won't understand it for another 20 years. But when she gets to that
Mm-hmm.
point and she starts her own career, I can share with her some of these things too, to say, you're the reason I got up in the morning. You're the reason I faced the challenges because I wanted you to see that, you can do anything you want to do. And again, as a woman in technology, that is doubly important, I think, because a lot of people don't see women as a powerhouse in technology. And at the end of the day, for me, it's not the technology, it's the ability to lead people and to support them in what they do. And I want my daughter to be a natural leader. I want her to accept everyone regardless of the circumstance, but have a boundary, because it's very important. It is that balancing act, and she sees that. She may not understand it, but she sees that now from a very young age, where we do balance the things. And I do talk to my husband about our day, our shared days at work, and she hears those things. So I think that just helps reinforce to her the importance of facing the challenges every single day. And when you overcome them, that feeling of success or relief, or okay, it's just done, that's okay too. Feel the things and then pick up the next challenge and move on. Like, that is life. That is life.
So do you think that, like staying with a small little angel around you has been more challenging, or working with a company who has presence on three regions?
Whew, I that depends on the day. Um, you know, Dealing with work stuff is a lot, like, especially in a company that's in growth mode, because ChampSoft has been in growth mode for the last 2 years. It is a lot like caring for a small child, where they don't always have impulse control. They don't always have the best decision making. They can spout off, like we're dealing with attitude right now, as she's in her 3-year-old phase. But the payoff is the little things, like, not to compare apples to oranges, but when she was successfully potty trained and she was so excited that she knew what that felt like, and she knew how to go to the
Mm-hmm.
bathroom. Again, not comparing apples to oranges at all, but trying to implement at Champsoft has, like, trying to implement standardized project processes. It takes work. But the more love that you pour into that child, the more love that you pour into your work, the payoff, the long game is where it's at. It's not a Raising a child and watching a business grow is not a sprinter's race. It is a marathon. And stepping back, for me, it was, I can't change everything the way it was done over 15 years in a day. So what's my long-term plan? What's my 6-month goal? What do I want to see done? And it's breaking down those big goals, because everybody wants the big goal, right? Oh, we
Yeah.
landed the big goal. How do you
Mm-hmm.
handle that day to day to day to day to day? That's where people get burnt out. But if you have that goal, if you know what your goal is, and like I have mine written down on a post-it note tacked to my monitor, every day it's a reminder. It's a reminder of, why do I do the thing? I do the thing to, we work because we have to work, but it's to instill that sense of work ethic into my daughter if I'm home, or
Mm-hmm.
the other people around me. Again, leaders need to come off of their pedestal and get dirty again and remember what it was like to do the work. We think, like, and it might be an American thing, but we get to this leadership position, this coveted leadership position, and we think we can just kick back and, make decisions and dictate. If you're not willing to do the work, if you're not willing to get dirty again, you will
Mm-hmm.
fail. You'll fail every time, in my opinion.
Yep. I think more of like, we should try, irrespective of we might fail a number of times, but there will
Mhm.
be one time that, we will conquer whatever we want.
Mhm. Mhm.
So in terms of conquering things,
Mm.
um, so here, like with the existing staff that we have, do
Mhm.
you think that one thing that they are not trying right now is more of like communicating with each other? Like irrespective of the task, the
Mhm.
project, they can
Mhm.
be very much vocal about any stupid thing. Like, I believe it is good to sound stupid sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And I have come to you so many times with stupid questions,
Oh.
stupid emails. I'm like, Erin, can you see my email?
Mhm. I think the important thing for us to remember is that we work to live. we don't live to work. And especially given, you and I are worlds apart, we all have lives outside of work. We all have things that consume our time, whether it's family or sports or education, whatever that
Yes.
is. And I think, we forget that, or I think leadership kind of forgets that when people come to work, it's, oh, you're all in all the time, 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, especially in the United States. I think ChampSoft is very unique in that we are respectful of the life outside of work. But
Mm-hmm.
even to that point, there's a shift in that too, where we've been far too accommodating. And now work is not getting done because we've been all about the life balance part. Now we have to swing the pendulum back into the work part. But how do you how do you build this connection with people in a remote setting? That is the other thing that I think people don't want to explore, because it's far too easy to just tell everybody to come back to work in an office. And the younger generation especially has no desire to go. I don't either, to be very clear. I have no desire to ever go back into a work office ever again. And it's not for any reason other than I'm successful at home, I'm comfortable at home. You know, you don't have to do the commute in the United States. Gas is $4 a gallon right now. I don't miss the drive time. I don't miss traffic. I don't miss having to share a refrigerator space with 60 other people all trying to cram their
Mm-hmm.
lunch in there. So I think if we were a bit more mindful of how do we handle this in a remote setting? It's not that people don't want to communicate, I don't think, genuinely, because humans as a whole, that's all we do. We communicate with each other. But how do you build those relationships in a remote world? And that to me is there's the other layer of the communication, is the ability to do it successfully while you're at your home and I'm at my home, and we don't have that water cooler or break room to go stand in the back and chit chat about what was on TV last night. So it's not so much about not wanting to communicate, it's how do you effectively build a relationship with somebody who may have been with the company for 5 years, I've never worked with, right? We shift around project teams, and all of a sudden you have to work with somebody who has been over here, kind of in the gray zone for five
Yeah.
years. And you're like, oh God, are they smarter than me? Do they know this? How am I going to fit in? How am I going to do all these things? So taking that social context and throwing the spaghetti at the wall and seeing what's going to stick. I don't think any organization, especially those that have forced people to go back to the office, have taken the time to understand how to be successful in a remote world, and like how do you build those bonds with your coworkers.
Mm-hmm. So, Erin, you said one thing which is more about the younger people that we have.
Mhm.
So, if you see our crowd right now, it is full. It is more of like younger professionals working with
Mhm.
us right now.
Mhm.
So what would be that one piece of advice that you want to give to our employees and to the younger crowd that we have right now for, like being, like how can they be a leader in the
Mhm.
team? How can they be a good communicator? How can they be more collaborative? Or how, like they can work around with the team, be very
Mhm.
much vocal? Like, what would be that advice from your end?
Mm. That is so. If that's the way you want to go, if you want to be a leader, find someone that you aspire to be
Mm-hmm.
and take the time to meet with them. Say, hey, I enjoy working with you. Every time we talk, every time we meet, I learn from you. And I'd really appreciate it if we could carve out time once a week to connect for a half hour and then make it happen. But go into those calls or those connections, or if it's lunch, if you're in the same spot where you can go to lunch or dinner, have some questions prepared so you're not just staring at each other for a half hour and, talking, which is fine. I mean, it's fine. It, ask them the same question you asked me, like, how did you get here? I i always encouraged people in my career, to ask me the question. And when I was new, when I was very young in my career learning how to be a project manager at this company, I did the same thing. I found someone that I admired that was on a bit of a senior level because they'd been with the company for a while. They understood the culture, they understood how projects moved, and I just sat with them and listened and took notes and followed their lead and said, "Hey, I've got this document I've prepared. Would you mind sitting with me and just kind of going over it and giving me your notes?" It's all about the effort that you're willing to put in. And if you're cool with just getting through your day, perfect. Like, that's the bare minimum ask, right? But if you want to be, if you want that feeling of connectivity and that feeling that you've really bonded with someone, I spent hours when I started ChampSoft, hours over weeks and months meeting with different people on the leadership team, especially Toshika and Harsha. I know you were a part of a lot of those, but I think it was Kartika and Nahansa before that.
Yes.
Um, just trying to understand, seeking to understand. And, my biggest mantra, the thing I always try to understand is I start with why. Why are you doing the thing that you're doing? And then how did you get there? Who, what, when, where, and why? Start with why and work your way backwards. And don't be afraid to try things. Find that person, find your person. And for me, many, many moons ago, I had no database experience whatsoever. My husband happened to be working at the company with me. And I had that relationship with him where I could go and ask him the stupidest SQL question, because I couldn't figure out my error. I beat my head against the wall. I tried it 16 different ways. And finally, I would go over there and say, "Hey, listen, can you spare 5 minutes for me to ask you this very basic, seemingly basic question?" But when you do that, though, you open yourself up to being vulnerable to say, "I've tried it and I failed and I can't figure it out. I need your help." And through that, we were able to I grew so much. I grew so much in my SQL knowledge and in, how to handle different situations, because I was never afraid to ask, even though it seemed ridiculously stupid to me at the time, or embarrassing, or how did I not know it. The person on the other side of that never had that thought because I took the time to go ask.
Which is great, right? See,
Yeah.
you actually proved one of my statement that, it is okay to sound stupid
Yeah.
and silly sometimes.
Yes, everybody's stupid. Everybody is, you don't, my great grandfather said, "You don't know what you don't know," right? So, how,
Right.
like, I think that's the whole thing too with social media. We have this false sense of, oh God, they're an expert on cooking, or because they made a TikTok video, or they speak very confidently about this thing. That's the other thing. Confidence can actually be detrimental, because you can go up to a person, they could give you the most confident answer in the world, and you take it as gospel, and it could be flat out wrong. So, pick your circle very carefully. Pick the people that are going to lift you up when you're not in the room, right? That's very
Right.
important. And be good with not it's okay for not everybody to like you. That's a big one for young people too. Is we start our career, we want everybody in the organization to like us. We do the things that we need to do to get people to like us. No matter how hard you work, or how good you are, or how thorough you are, there is going to be someone or a group of people who do not like you. And that's okay.
Right.
That's okay. Move on.
So I think this is one of a very good advice for all of our people, that it is okay when people don't like you, but at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, you have to do what you are here for,
Mm-hmm.
and come, work, achieve, and then
Mm-hmm.
go sleep peacefully.
Oh, 100%. There are people that you know, didn't like we had to work together. We were on the project management team together. We had no choice. For whatever reason, don't know what I did, we just had personalities. I think we had personalities that were very similar. So when you have that, dynamic, it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
get along. But regardless, at the end of the day, if we had to work together on something, you just had to check the part of your personalities that didn't click to get the job done. And it's neither of us ever went to HR about it. We just knew that once
Yeah.
the project was finished, we moved on in our parallel lanes and we didn't have to speak to each other outside of that. But, that's the other part that I think, and I'm going to pick on the young people a little bit to say life is not about the participation award. If you want to be at whatever level you want, if your base is, you know what, I just want to work for a company because they've got a good culture, I'm getting paid pretty well, the benefits are solid, good on you. Good for you. But if you want to get to that next level, you have to put yourself out there. You have to fail and fail again and then fail some more and then learn from all of that and then
Mm-hmm.
take it to that next level. But, go into it and just give your whole self. Give as much as you can. And I always tell people, give me 100% of what you can give me today. Maybe today, Shazia, you're functioning at 60% because you've had a rough night, you don't feel great, whatever. Give me 100% of your 60% and I'm going to be okay for today. Because I know if I give you that space and I give you that time, tomorrow, maybe you'll be at an 80%. Great. I get 100% of the 80%. Maybe next week you're back up here, life is good, you're giving 100%, I get 100% of that. And when you're feeling real good, because I've supported you and, encouraged you and nurtured you into that, and I'm not
Yeah.
trying to pat myself on the back, you're going to give 110% and I get 100% of that. So it's just give me all that you can give me for today and I'm going to be okay with it. But if it's outside of that, let's have a conversation. If you're genuinely not happy, speak up on that part too. We're all adults. Like you're coming into a world where we expect you to function like adults. This is not a participation thing. Your participation award is your paycheck every 2 weeks or every month.
Yeah.
But if you want to get to that next level, and you want to own that and rock that, you just have to grind it out. Some people are lucky and they fall into it. Some people are not. For most of us, it's a lot of work every single day, every day. But there's also that boundary thing that is beautiful too, where, we sign off at the end of the night. It's still going to be there tomorrow. Your worry is still going to be there tomorrow. Your challenge is still going to be there tomorrow. So give yourself enough space and self care to put it down for the night because you're going to have to pick it back up tomorrow.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, so one thing is this, Erin, that the entire base of this particular episode was to to make sure that we are engaging more with our employees.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe with your and my this particular conversation would help them to think in a little different manner, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, because it is more of like opening one more door of thoughts and
Yes.
opinions and ideas coming your way.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about the employee engagement plus communication.
Mm-hmm.
So so since you have been deeply working with the team,
Mm-hmm.
so what do you feel that do they actually like feel that there is employee engagement like these that can boost their like communication inside the organization? It can help them grow, or it can help them stronger their like workplace culture in
Mm-hmm.
terms of DDI and Cham 360.
I think so. I think that the best way I can describe, especially if I'm reflective on the last 6 months or so, with growth comes pain. And when you remember, and I've talked to several mentors about this too, because the challenges and the pain that people feel on the project teams are, I think, are almost felt double on the leadership teams, because we don't want our project teams to get fatigued. We don't want them to get burnt out. We don't want them to be unhappy. Um, but when you're going through growth, or you have to make a dramatic shift very quickly, and I think I can speak to everyone that, last year at this time, I don't think there were many of us factoring in how much AI specifically would come into play and change the trajectory of everything that we do as an organization every day. Like, it gives you whiplash to think about how quickly we've had to shift into more output with no additional resources, and, cleaner code, and keeping the customer happy. So every time you have to make a fast shift like that, it's going to hurt. Like, it's going to hurt. And I think largely we've kept the train on the rails, so to speak. But, there's been some spillage on the carts here and there, which, it makes everyone feel very uncomfortable, including everyone on the leadership team, because we're also trying to anticipate things, what's coming down the track. Is it generative AI? Is it this next gen AI? What's it going to be like in 6 months? And what I feel like is, oftentimes when you're in the trenches trying to adapt every single day, you don't feel like your voice is heard. You feel like decisions are being made without any care for your health and well-being. You feel like there is no open door, because people are tense, and things aren't great, because we're having to acquire this new skill overnight. And the reality of that is, it is true. It is very true that you do have to adapt, or you're not going to make it to the next level. And no one on the leadership team wants to deliver that message, because we didn't adapt in time. So it has been painful. But to that end, again, we're coming out of that on the other side, where we now have, spectrum and development adoption and things like that. And you can kind of sense the relief when I go into these project meetings, because everybody is familiar enough now. But, it wasn't like that for a while, which makes people question the organization, the sustainability. Do I have a voice? Does it even matter if I'm not a part of these decisions? And to that end, I would say, count your blessings that you don't have to make those decisions, because they're not made lightly, and they're not made, by snapping your fingers and having it all happen, because we knew it was going to be painful. Um, but as far as engagement goes, my suggestion to everyone is, don't go ahead and complain. I think it's important to vent,
Yeah.
and I think it's important to have those moments, but then come out onto the other side of that and say, okay, here's what I learned from it, and here's what I'd like to try going forward. Like, I have called you and I'm like, today stinks. This is a horrible day. I had to go into meetings, and I didn't have a great day. I just need to vent to you about it, so you know what's going on in my headspace, and I'm going to go for a walk, and I'll be right back, but I need 20 minutes to just breathe. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. Find a work bestie and go vent. But don't let that become poison, because holding
Right.
that in is, holding it in and expecting leadership to read your mind is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. It doesn't work that way. But if you can come into that as a mature adult and say, listen, I don't agree with the way things went down. Can we talk about it? No one's going to shut the door. No one's going to turn you away. We're looking for those kinds of things to make it better going forward. And, bringing those ideas up, or getting a team together. Here's the other thing: call people of like mindedness and get a group together and say, listen, leadership, You guys tanked this one. We all feel it. Here's how we want to make it better next time. And then you're going to get the blessing. I promise. I promise. It's okay to complain. Life is not perfect. Work is not perfect. And the other thing I would tell our younger people is that your leadership team is also living today at the for the first time at the same time you are. So a little bit of grace and a little bit of empathy and love goes a long way because we're just trying to figure it out too.
Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
how they are doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, so Erin, it was, like a good conversation with you. But if there is one message you would like to share with the ChampSoft DDI and Champ 360 team listening to this particular first ever post podcast
Mm-hmm.
of ChampSoft
Ah,
Unplugged,
uh-huh.
what would it be?
I think I'll just maybe reiterate as you go into your life, whether it's personal or professional, you can only control how you react to a specific situation. And you don't ever get to live today over again. You're never going to get Friday, May 8th back. So, what did you do in your day to bring positivity and love to yourself? And then, how did you pass that on to someone in the world around you? And if at minimum, if that is the only thing you look back on your day, and maybe some days you do, maybe some days you don't, but I think everyone in this organization has the capacity to be great and to be amazing. And you may not be the best coder or the best project manager or the best anything in the company, but carrying yourself with just a little bit more empathy and love and kindness can change the world of someone that you interact with in your day. You have 24 hours to make a difference, and you don't know if it's that one phone call with a coworker where you're just positive and bubbly and you ask how they're doing, maybe they were feeling a certain way, nobody cared about them, et cetera, et cetera. You can change the world by one interaction at a time. And if we're all mindful of that every single day, and we remember that everybody is living today for the first time, I think it will go a lot farther uh, in the company and then in the world. Because if you change yourself, you change the people around you change the company can change the world. So just give yourself grace and be vulnerable enough to ask, how are you doing today?
I will definitely ask that question to me, Erin.
Yep.
But but I think that's a really great piece of advice for the people who are still, like trying to figure out their way.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the piece of advice for you.
Yes, we're all trying to figure it out one day at a time.
So, Erin, since you'll be leaving us next
Yes.
week,
Yes.
so you'll be missed in the company. That's first thing. Second thing is to your motherhood journey.
Hmm.
Are you excited? I know it will be full of challenges for you,
Mm-hmm.
but are you excited for that?
I had a mother who stayed home for 8 years. And this is, in the 80s when you
Mm-hmm.
parents could do that. You could still survive on one income. But for me, and for those of you who don't know, I guess I can share. I was not planning on becoming a mother. It was not in my wheelhouse to want to have children or a child. And she's here. She just turned 3. So it all worked out really well. But, I told Jiwa this when we talked. In 70 years or 100 years, when I'm very long gone, because I'm just turned 41. When I'm not here in 60 or 70 years, she is my legacy. Your children are your legacy. And, you know, from someone who is very career driven, where my life was my career, and especially in today's world, you two parents have to work. You have to work.
Yeah.
Um, it's for me, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, and being able to step back in my career is not something I anticipated, but it's something I'm looking forward to because she does something funny or she learns something new every day. And to be able to get to do those things with her and see the world through her eyes, when I'm not exhausted from a long day of work, or I'm not, my attention is not divided and shared, which is no problem right now. But, being a mom or a dad, I think if you do it right, and I am no parenting expert, by the way, no parenting expert, but it is the hardest thing you'll ever do. It's also the best thing you'll ever do. And I'm really looking forward to going to the park with her, or, hanging out when she's napping, just kind of lounging this summer, going to the pool. There will be other things heavier things that we have to contend with along the way.
Right.
But I don't ever want her to look back and say, my mom picked her job and her career. She loved her career more than she loved me. Um, because I also need someone to take care of me when I get old and gray. So I want her to love me all the way through. But I am excited. I am very excited. And I think working from home, it's been that medium step in between stay-at-home mom life and corporate work life, because I've been able to see her, I'll go down and have lunch or whatever. But yeah, I'm very excited. And I'm also like, how am I going to entertain this tiny human all day, every day, forever?
So, so Erin, it was, like really nice talking to you. So thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
out your precious time to spend on this podcast with us. And we wish you all the best. You
Same.
have all of our wishes, our tiny blessings with you and the little one. And one thing from the entire team would be, irrespective of, like whatever the situation is, we are always there for you. Maybe as a company, as an individual, or maybe a group of people, but we will always wish best for your upcoming life and your upcoming new challenges.
I can say the exact same for everybody at the organization. And we've talked about it. It was not an easy decision. It was not a decision made lightly after going through all that this company has gone through, and getting to this point where we're, coming back into the stage of growth, and everything is what it is. But I can honestly say that I will be watching and keeping in touch, of course. For those of you offshore, definitely on LinkedIn. Jiwa's in Nashville. I already told him, I'm like, when we get through all this, we're going to take a long trip down to Nashville and we'll connect. And who knows what the next 6 months to a year can bring.
Yeah.
So I think I know I'll be keeping an eye on things, and who knows, in a year or so, there may be some kind of return in some capacity. I promise nothing, but nothing is off the table. I never thought I'd be here. So life is a very fun ride. And I think we all just have to, appreciate what's ahead of us, and just kind of just roll with it, because what else are you going to do? Right?
Fingers crossed, hoping for the
Fingers
best.
crossed. Yes. Thank you for your time. I will be subscribing, and if you haven't done so, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us for more content as we go forward. But I'm happy to kick this one off, and I will be liking and subscribing and watching for many, many podcasts to come.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank
Thank
you.
you.